sektor, hindi DPWH. Noong mga panahon na yon, may matching ang DepEd at ang LGU para magkaroon ng school building program. Nung nagsanib puwersa ang PPP at ang matching ng national government at local governments, at one point, we were constructing 600 school buildings a week. Nagawa na noon, kayang gawin ulit ngayon, at ito ang layunin ng Senate Bill 1482. Ito ang pangako natin, walang bata ang dapat mawalan ng kinabukasan dahil lang sa nililipad o gumuguhong bubong. Walang guro ang dapat magturo sa ilalim ng pansamantalang tolda pagkatapos ng bagyo. Pinapanday natin ang isang institusyong pangmatagalan, isang programang karapat-dapat sa mga pag-asa na ipinagkatiwala sa atin at tumutugon sa mga natuklasan ng EDCOM 2 at sa realidad ng ating bansang climate vulnerable. In closing, Mr. President, dear colleagues, the future of education, the strength of our communities, and the dignity of the Filipino learner all depend on what we do next. Let us support the Classroom Building Acceleration Program. Let us build 600 to 1,000 classrooms every week and help us rebuild with urgency, creativity, and compassion. Salamat po.
Thank you. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure is Senator Christopher Lawrence Bongo. I move that he be recognized.
Senator Christopher Bongo is recognized.
Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, I rise before this August chamber to co-sponsor the proposed measure, Senate Bill number 1482, or the Classroom Building Acceleration Program Act. As the chairperson of the Senate Committee on Youth, I share the same vision of empowering the next generation through education. That is why I have pushed for measures that uplift the welfare of students, educators, and their families. Ang kabataan po ang pag-asa ng ating bayan at bukod sa kanilang kalusugan, edukasyon ang dapat na maging prioridad. Hindi po lingid sa kaalaman ng marami na ang kakulangan sa silid-aralan ang isa sa pinakamalaking problema na kinakaharap ng sektor ng edukasyon. For the year 2023, EDCOM 2 reported that there is an existing backlog of 165,000 classrooms nationwide, which greatly affects the learning outcomes of our young Filipino learners. Kahit saan po ako pumunta sa magkabilang sulok ng Pilipinas, pag baba ko doon sa mga eskwelahan, ang nilalapit ng mga teachers o mga principals ay kakulangan talaga ng classroom at pinapakita nila yung mga sira-sira na nilang mga classroom. Nakakalungkot pong isipin na nasasayang po ang pondo para sa mga flood control projects. Sana po inilaan na lamang po ito sa sektor ng kalusugan at kaya po dito sa sektor ng edukasyon para makapagpatayo tayo ng silid-aralan or classrooms. Sa 1.2 trillion na budget para sa flood control mula 2022 hanggang 2025, aabot sa 300,000 to 600,000 classrooms. Sana ang naipatayo or 60,000 evacuation centers. Batas na po ito through Ligtas Pinoy Centers Act, or 80,000 health centers, or even 800 tertiary hospitals ang pwedeng may papatayo sa mga pondong ito. This proposed measure stays true to the state's constitutional mandate to provide quality education to each and every Filipino learner. Dapat lamang po na magkaisa ang iba't ibang sektor ng ating lipunan upang mapunan ang kakulangan ng silid-aralan ng ating bansa. With this bill, the participation of different vital sectors of our society will be encouraged, thereby strengthening the partnership between the national government, local government units, private sectors, and civil society groups. Malaking tulong po dito yung LGU dahil mas alam nila ang kakulangan ng classrooms po sa mga lugar nila. Mr. President, I manifest my full support for the passage of this significant measure, and I also respectfully submit to this chamber my interest in being made of one of the co-authors of this important piece of legislation. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure is Senator Lauren Legarda. I move that she be recognized.
Senator Lauren Legarda is recognized.
With the permission of the sponsor, may I co-sponsor the said measure? Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, in the past days, communities across several regions braced for the impact of Typhoons Tino and Uwan. Preliminary reports by the Department of Education indicate that at least 312 schools in Bicol, Calabarzon, and the Cordillera Administrative Region sustained significant damage. When the waters recede and families return, many students in affected areas will find their classrooms flooded, compromised, or no longer structurally sound. This is not an isolated event. It reflects a long-standing structural problem. The national classroom backlog remains large and persistent, accumulated over decades of population growth, recurrent disaster exposure, natural deterioration of school buildings, and uneven quality and capacity in infrastructure delivery. Why does this matter? Because learning is shaped not only by curriculum and instruction, but also by the physical environment in which the school day unfolds. Classroom conditions such as adequate space, ventilation, lighting, noise reduction, and safety directly influence attention, comprehension, and readiness to learn. When a child spends the day in a room that is overcrowded, poorly ventilated, or unsafe, we are asking that child to learn while managing discomfort and anxiety. The burden shifts from learning to coping. The Classroom Building Acceleration Program responds to this reality by improving how we deliver classrooms at scale. The bill allows capable local governments and qualified civil society organizations to implement classroom construction using national funds, provided that all projects meet the DepEd's minimum performance standards and specifications, including climate resilience, digital connectivity, and adequate water and sanitation facilities. A program management office within DepEd will review proposals, ensure technical quality, and maintain transparency throughout procurement and implementation. This approach advances several urgent national objectives: education recovery, reduction of learning loss, equitable access for underserved communities, and infrastructure planning that is responsive to evolving environmental and community conditions. It ensures that the classrooms we build are not only numerous, but also structurally sound, context appropriate, and suited for the climate future we already live in. I thank the sponsor for this measure, Senator Bam Aquino, for championing this measure. And at the appropriate time, I would like to learn more about the cost of classrooms, which was flashed on screen, and know about the NEP and GAB provision for classrooms and the backlog to date, and how the measure, assuming we pass it before the December break, could be applied and reduce the backlog for 2026. At the same time, I would like to know, just in advance, to inform the sponsor, I will be asking about how the divisions or the allocation for classrooms in every region, province, and district is allocated based on the NEP, seeing the lack of equitable distribution and the lack of parity, having reviewed the NEP revised and the GAB for 2026. Thank you, Mr. President. You have the figures.
Oh, ano daw yun? Unfailing. Teka, sandali.
Mr. President,
Majority Leader.
next to co-sponsor the measure is Senator Robin Hood Padilla. I move that he be recognized.
Senator Robin Hood Padilla is recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo, at sa ating pinunong mayorya. A'udhu billahi minasyaitanir rajim, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mga mahal kong kasama, Ginoong Pangulo, ang aking pagbisita sa mga paralan mula Tawi-Tawi hanggang Apare Paulit-ulit ko pong nakikita ang kakulangan sa silid-aralan. Mga batang nagsisiksikan, mga tumutulong kesame, at mga pasilyong ginawa ng classrooms dahil sa kakulangan ng espasyo. Kaya naman po tumatayo ako ngayon upang buong dangal na i-co-sponsor ang Classroom Building Acceleration Program na isinusulong ng aking kapatid sa paglilingkod, Senador Bam Aquino. Mga mahal kong kababayan, meron pong mga pagkakataon na kahit magkaiba ang kulay sa politika, ay nagkakaisa po para sa isang adhikaing makatutulong sa ating mga kababayan, lalong-lalo na po sa ating mga kabataang Pilipino. Batid naman po nating lahat sa maraming pagkakataon na tayo po ay sinakop ng mga dayuhan o ng anumang adhikain o ng anumang religion, pinakamahalaga po at unang-una na dinadala nila ay edukasyon. Sapagkat ito po yung pinaka matinding pangangailangan upang magkaroon ng pagkakaintindihan. Kaya po, inihingi ko po sa aking mga kasama na suportahan po natin ang panukala na ito ng aking kaibigan na si Senador Bam Aquino upang ang atin pong kabataan ay makasabay. Huwag pong maiwan sa takbo ng mundo, sa pagalingan. Alam naman po natin, hindi po kaila na marami pong mga bansa na makapangyarihan, yaan pong nagsasamantala sa mga katulad natin na bansa. Ang atin pong panlaban ay tamang edukasyon. At yaan po ay pinatunayan mismo ng ating mga bayani. Kung natatandaan po natin noong panahon ni Dr. Jose Rizal, sa kanyang mga huling araw sa dapitan, ang kanya pong pinalakas ay ang pagbibigay edukasyon sa kabataan. Nagbigay po siya ng silid-aralan doon mismo sa dapitan. Kaya maihahambing ko po ang panukala na ito kay Dr. Jose Rizal. Ngunit, meron po tayong backlog, 165,000 classrooms. Sabi nga po ng ating kasama din, ni Senator Kiko Pangilinan, kailangan linggo-linggo po may gawing tayong classroom. Sapagkat meron pong nabanggit na 22 classrooms lang ang nagawa itong taon na ito. Na ang target po ay 1,700. Ibig pong sabihin, kailangan natin ng 55 years para abutan po natin yung 1,700. Pero bago po natin magawa yon, lolo na po yung mga bata. May mga apo na po sila. Kaya sana po, akin pong hinihingi, suportahan natin ito sapagkat kung edukasyon ng susi sa ating kinabukasan, patuloy tayong makukulong sa problema ng kasalukuyan dahil sa kakulangan at kawalan ng maayos na silid-aralan. Naniniwala po ako na ang CAP-Act ay tunay na makapagbibigay ng solusyon sa suliraning ito. Ang bawat silid-aralan na may tatayo sa pamamagitan ng batas na ito ay isang pamumuhunan sa pangarap ng bawat batang Pilipino. Sa pagsuporta sa panukalang ito, sinisiguro natin ang kanilang karapatan sa dekalidad na edukasyon at mas magandang kinabukasan, hindi lamang po sa bayang ito, kundi sa paligsahan sa buong mundo. Maraming salamat po.
Before we continue, Majority Leader, Senator Jingo Estrada is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I have just received a very, very sad information that our former colleague, former Senate President Juan Ponce Enrile, is currently in the intensive care unit of an undisclosed hospital suffering from pneumonia. And I heard from a reliable source, a very, very reliable source, that he has slim chances of surviving. And I hope all of us here present can have a short prayer to be led by Senator Joel Villanueva, if it's possible, Mr. President.
Senator Joel Villanueva is recognized.
May we ask everyone to rise and give a moment of silence. Dakilang Diyos, Ama naming sumasalangit, kami pong lahat ay lumalapit, naninikluhod sa iyo, humihingi ng tawad sa anumang kasalanan na aming nagawa sa isip, sa salita o sa gawa. Sa mga oras po na ito, amin pong idinadalangin at idinudulog sa iyo ang buhay ng isang aming colleague, mentor, Senate President, kamanggagawa, tagapaglingkod, naninilbihan para sa aming mga kababayan, Senator Juan Ponce Enrile. Ikaw, O Diyos, ang may hawak ng kanyang buhay. Ikaw ang nagbigay ng kanyang buhay. Ikaw ang nag-inspire at humawak ng kanyang buhay para marating niya kung anuman ang kanyang narating sa mga oras na ito. Hinihiling po namin ang iyong paggabay, ang iyong direksyon, ang iyong paghipo at pagbibigay ng kagalingan sa bawat kalamnan, sa bawat suluk-sulukan ng kanyang buong katawan. Hawakan mo po ito at hinihiling namin ang iyong intervention sa kanyang buhay. Tulungan mo rin po ang kanyang mga pamilya at mahal sa buhay at tunay, O Diyos, na ang tanging dakilang plano at ang iyong ninanais sa kanyang buhay ay mangyari. Kami pong lahat ay nagkakaisa at patuloy na inilalapit sa iyo ang buhay ng aming minamahal na Manong Johnny Ponce Enrile. Sa iyo pong lahat ng papuri at pasasalamat at kiniklaim namin, O Diyos, na ikaw ay patuloy na maluluwalhati at mapaparangalan sa buhay ng aming minamahal na Juan Ponce Enrile. Maraming salamat po. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen.
Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure, Senator Raffy Tulfo. I move that he be recognized.
Senator Raffy Tulfo is recognized.
Mr. President, good sponsor, dear colleagues, as one of the co-authors of this measure, I rise today to co-sponsor the committee report on the act establishing the Classroom Building Acceleration Program or CAP. Isang panukalang batas na tutugon sa matagal na nating problema sa kakulangan ng classrooms sa bansa upang mabigyan lahat ng bata, lalo na mga mag-aaral na galing sa mahirap na pamilya, ang pagkakataong magkaroon ng edukasyon at maging matagumpay sa buhay. This proposed measure is not only timely, but it will also save the government millions of funds for classroom building na dati-rati nabubuhos lang sa DPWH, isang ahensyang tad-tad ng anomalya ngayon. By providing an alternative mechanism that is more responsive and cost-efficient, and by forging credible partnerships between local government units or LGUs and private sector entities, mas mapapabilis na po ang pagpapatayo ng classrooms at makasigurong mapupunta sa tama ang pondong nakalaan para rito. We have a backlog of almost 165,000 classrooms at base sa mga datos na isinumite sa atin, kakailanganan natin ng almost 15 years, 15 taon po yan, isang dekada at kalahati, upang matugunan ang problema sa classroom shortage. Ang masaklap, sa nakaraang taong 2024, nasa 3,181 classrooms lamang ang nakumpleto. Sa makatuwid, at the rate we're going, we will need at least 50 years to hit our target. Now is the time to change the system and approach the problem differently in a manner that is more realistic, cost-efficient, and reliable. Ngayon pa lang, tinatalang 3,260 classrooms ang nagtamo ng iba't ibang antas ng pinsala dahil sa bagyong Tino. Ayon yan po sa DepEd. At noong linggo, dahil sa bugso ng bagyong Uwan, DepEd reported that in Bicol and Calabar Zone alone, 1,182 classrooms were partially damaged, 366 heavily damaged, and 261 were totally destroyed. Habang tayo ay dinadaanan ng mga bagyo buwan-buwan, patuloy din na nadadagdagan ang datos sa classroom shortage. Kung hindi tayo gumalaw ng mabilis, maaaring hindi makapag-aral na maayos sa isang taon ang karamihan sa ating learners. In response to this situation, it is noteworthy to highlight Section 5, Paragraph D of the proposed measure. Schools located in high-risk or disaster-prone areas, such as those vulnerable to flooding, earthquake, or other similar calamities, and those reliant on temporary learning spaces, shall be prioritized under this program. Isa lamang ito sa mga magagandang probisyon ng panukalang batas na mabibigyan solusyon sa problema ng classrooms sa panahon ng kalamidad. Excuse me. I welcome the proposed partnerships between LGUs and NGOs upang agad matugunan ang problema ng classroom shortage under the able guidance and authority of the DepEd, na siya naman talagang nakakaalam kung ano talaga ang kailangan at naangkop sa mga mag-aaral ng iba't ibang lugar sa Pilipinas. Under this bill, DepEd minimum performance standards and specification will ensure that classrooms shall be built taking into serious consideration all relevant factors like topography, climate conditions of a given area, digital connectivity, and access to transportation, such that these projects are structurally sound, and given that schools are also being used as evacuation centers during calamities. At huli sa lahat, napapanahon na magkaroon ng funding ang cost ceilings sa mga gastusin sa construction ng classroom. Under this bill, funds for projects under this measure shall not be bloated and wasted. Tama na yung mga kumikita sa mga construction projects. Mr. President, education is the cornerstone of national development, social stability, and economic progress. Hence, it is imperative to strengthen our educational system by building these much-needed classrooms at the soonest possible time. Kaya, nagpapasalamat po ako kay Senator Bam Aquino, the chairperson of the Committee on Basic Education, for prioritizing this concern. With the passage of this bill, nakaasa tayo na mas marami ng batang Pilipino ang makapasok at makapag-aral sa mga susunod na taon. Again, maraming salamat kay Senator Bam Aquino sa pag-sponsor ng napakagandang bill na ito. Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure is Senator Joel Villanueva. I move that he be recognized.
Senator Joel Villanueva is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. This will be short. I'd like to just put into the records, Mr. President, that we would like to commend and congratulate our chairperson, Senator Bam Aquino, to having sponsored this Classroom Building Acceleration Program Act. Through the years, Mr. President, Senator Bam has remained steadfast in his cause and consistent in his advocacy for quality education. We have shared so many landmark legislations such as Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education, Philippine Qualifications Act, a Framework Act, and others. and thus as a fellow champion for quality education, as one of the co-authors of this measure, we fully support the passage of the CAP Act. Let me just point out, Mr. President, that indeed our learners are in dire need of stronger support and immediate assistance from the government, particularly in addressing the persistent shortage of classrooms in our public schools. I remember, Mr. President, when we were told that there's only about 1,700 classrooms na target for the year 2025, naliitan po tayo. Pero nung marinig natin kay Secretary Vince na 22 lamang yung silid-aralan, talagang mas lalo po tayong nanlumo. Kaya po, Mr. President, napakahalaga ng panukalang batas na ito at umabot na rin po sa 148,000 ang backlog sa classroom construction sa buong bansa. Ito po ay malinaw, Ginoong Pangulo, na patunay na marami pa po tayong kailangang gawin upang tugunan ang kakulangan sa pasilidad ng ating mga paaralan. Sa pamamagitan po ng panukalang ito, ipinapakita natin ang ating pagtutok at pagmamalasakit sa kinabukasan ng ating kabataan. Umaasa po tayo na sa bisa ng CAP Act, tuluyan ng maiibsan ang backlog sa pagpapatayo ng mga silid-aralan at mapapabilis ang implementasyon ng mga proyektong pang-edukasyon sa buong bansa. Moreover, Mr. President, through this measure, we also aim to support the vision and pledge of the President, President Bongbong Marcos, to complete the construction of 40,000 classrooms before the end of his term. And we pray, Mr. President, na ang mga colleagues po natin ay masuportahan po ang immediate passage of this act to give every Filipino learner a safe, conducive, and dignified space to learn and grow. Maraming salamat, Ginoong Pangulo, and may God bless us all.
Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure, Senator Pia Cayetano, I move that she be recognized.
Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I rise to co-sponsor Senate Bill number 1482 under Committee Report number 6. This bill seeks to address the country's classroom shortage by authorizing eligible LGUs and the civil society organizations to implement classroom construction projects using government funds complementing existing DepEd infrastructure programs. The shortage of classrooms have been a perennial problem in our education system, and I have long advocated for the acceleration of classroom constructions. In 2022, as the Senior Vice Chair of the Committee on Finance, handling the budget of education, I presented data during our DBCC briefing on classroom shortage. The classroom shortage was then 127, can I wait for the slide to be shown? The classroom shortage was then 127,039. The budget needed to build these classrooms was 317 billion. The budget allotted in the NEP was only 5.92 billion. So from 317 needed, 5.92 billion. And with this budget, it would take us 60 years to fill the gap. My bold proposal then at the start of this administration was to consider closing the classroom gap by budgeting 52 billion per year. Sounds like a lot, right? But nowadays, we know that 52 billion can be produced pag kailangan pala. At mukhang mas madali kung may mali siya. Sorry, I had to say that as part of this speech because that's how people understand these numbers these days. So here we are, 3 years later. Just a few weeks ago, I also presented in the DBCC briefing hearing. According to the DepEd, the classroom shortage is now 165,000. So from 3 years ago na 127,000, ngayon 165,000 na. Kasi marami pa rin tayong mga anak, mga kababayan. Budget needed to fill the shortage is 412.50 billion. So nadagdagan na ng around 100 billion. And the budget in the NEP for 2026 is 13.25 billion. So with this year's budget and with a cost of 2.5 million per classroom, only 5,300 classrooms will be built. I will repeat. What is needed is 165,000, and what will be built based on this year's budget is 5,300 classrooms. With a similar budget, it will take more than 31 years to fill the gap. This shortage means that millions of Filipino students continue to study in congested, makeshift, or unsafe learning conditions that hinder learning outcomes. To repeat, and I just would like to emphasize this, in 2023, the budget for classrooms in the GAA was 15.60 billion. This is the General Appropriations Act. In 2024, it was 24.70 billion, and in 2025, it was 13.25 billion. So barely a sliver of what was needed. As chairperson of the Committee on Sustainable Development Goals, Innovation and Futures Thinking, I foresaw the opportunity the pandemic presented and the shift to online classes. While our students were at home, I proposed that we take advantage of that period and push for school building, repairs, and rehabilitation. However, our studies revealed that there was low utilization of funds by the DPWH, many other problems, including lack of preparation of the land, lack of buildable space in the most congested areas where the classrooms were most needed. These issues continued through the years. It was a missed opportunity, Mr. President, because that would have been the perfect time to address our classroom backlog, an effort that could have significantly reduced the numbers we are grappling with today. As Senior Vice Chairperson of the Committee on Finance that handles the budget of DepEd, that has handled the budget of DepEd for 6 years, our committee was able to assess how we could allocate more resources toward classroom construction. We pushed for the augmentation of the budget for classroom construction, repairs, and rehabilitations. In the NEP, we had allocations for budget repairs that were not fully funded, and we felt that these were very low-hanging fruits because it would take less to repair these classrooms. As mentioned earlier, we had consistently pointed out that with the limited budget under the Basic Education Facility Fund, it would take years for this gap to be addressed. Recognizing that many existing school buildings are already in disrepair, we also advocated for more rehabilitation and retrofitting. In several budget deliberations, we emphasized the need for climate-resilient school infrastructure, facilities that are safe, inclusive, and conducive to learning for all students. Closing the gap in the classroom shortage helps us achieve the following Sustainable Development Goals, particularly SDG 1, no poverty, SDG 3, good health and well-being, SDG 4, quality education, SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, SDG 9, industry, innovation, infrastructure, SDG 10, reduce inequalities, SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities. By accelerating the classroom construction, we are not only investing in building, we are investing in human capital and in the learning environment that nurtures the next generation. This program must not only fill present gaps, but it must also anticipate the future of learning. That means classrooms designed for blended learning, for energy efficiency, and for climate adaptation, especially in flood or typhoon-prone areas. We'd like to thank our chairperson, Senator Bam Aquino, for prioritizing this bill. Let us make the classroom building acceleration program not just a response to a backlog, but a vision for the future of Philippine education. Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President. Next to co-sponsor is Senator Win Gatchalian. Move that he be recognized.
Senator Sherwin Gatchalian is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. First and foremost, let me congratulate and commend Senator Bam Aquino for coming up with this very novel but very timely concept. Nasabi ho ni Senator Pia na talagang napakalaki po ang backlog natin sa classrooms. 160,000 ang kailangan natin para mahabol lang yung backlog natin sa classrooms. And that will cost approximately about 400 billion pesos. So kahit na mayroon tayong 400 billion pesos, Mr. President, hindi naman may implement kaagad because of absorptive capacity of the Department of Education. So the CAP program will liberalize the implementation of classrooms in our country, allowing local governments to build classrooms all at the same time. Yung po yung maganda dito, pwedeng sabay-sabay ho nagko-construct ang mga local government units para sabay-sabay rin natatapos. They can also tap the private sector to build dahil nakita ho natin sa hearing na mas mura ang private sector pagko-construct ng mga classrooms, so we can tap CSO. And we can also come up with innovative modalities such as PPP para pumahabol natin yung 165,000 na backlog natin. So, Mr. President, let me again thank and congratulate our chairman of the Basic Education Committee for coming up with this very timely concept. And a more extensive co-sponsorship speech will be submitted to the body to be inserted into the records, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure is Senator Erwin Tulfo.
Senator Erwin Tulfo is recognized.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise today to express my full support as co-sponsor of Senate Bill number 1482 under Committee Report number 6, which seeks to establish the Classroom Building Acceleration Program or CAP under the Department of Education. Nung ako po ay bumoto noong nakarang eleksyon, isa sa mga hindi ko po kakalimutan ay ang kalunos-lunos na kalagayan po ng ating mga silid-aralan. Mainit, siksikan, at minsan pa ay kulang sa upuan. Sa ganitong kalagayan, mahirap asahan na matuto ng maayos ang ating mga kabataan, Mr. President. Sa panukalang ito, binibigyan kapangyarihan ng mga lokal na pamahalaan at mga civil society organizations na makibahagi sa pagpapatayo ng mga silid-aralan. Isang konkretong hakbang upang mapabilis ang pagpapatayo ng mga ligtas, maayos at komportableng lugar para sa ating mga mag-aaral. Naniniwala po ako, Mr. President, na sa tulong ng programang ito, mas mabilis na maihatid ang dekalidad ng edukasyon, hindi lamang po sa salita, kundi sa mismong pisikal na espasyo kung saan nagsisimula ang kanilang mga pangarap. I would also like to thank Senator Bam for championing this classroom building acceleration program. Thank you, Senator Bam. Thank you, Mr. President. Maraming salamat po at magandang hapon sa lahat.
Thank you. Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, last to co-sponsor the measure is this presentation. May I be recognized, Mr. President?
Yes, the acting Majority Leader is recognized. Senator J.B. Ersto.
Mr. President, my dear colleagues, good afternoon. It is an honor to rise today to co-sponsor Senate Bill number 1482 under Committee Report number 6 or the Classroom Building Acceleration Program authored by the gentleman from Tarlac, Senator Bam Aquino. Batid po natin na sa kasalukuyan, isa sa pinamabigat na suliranin kinakaharap ng ating bansa sa sektor ng edukasyon ay ang malaking kakulangan sa silid-aralan ng ating mga pampublikong paaralan. This shortage directly affects the quality of learning and the dignity of our students and teachers alike. At napapanahon na po ang isang whole-of-nation approach upang tugunan at bigyan ng solusyon ang krisis na ito. Recognizing the magnitude of a classroom backlog, we acknowledge the necessity of forging stronger partnerships with the local government units and the private sector to expedite classroom construction nationwide. Through the implementation of the Classroom Building Acceleration Program, we aim to intensify, coordinate the efforts, and mobilize additional resources to ensure the timely delivery of adequate and quality learning spaces for all students. Pinasasalamatan natin si Senator Bam for championing the bill that seeks to address the glaring shortage of classrooms in the country. You have our full and unwavering support ensuring that this vital legislative measure is passed into law as soon as possible. Kaugnay nito, patuloy din po natin isinusulong ngayong 20th Congress ang Senate Bill number 2 o tinatawag na Master Plan for Infrastructure and National Development Act. Layunin na panukalang ito na magtakda ng isang pangmatagalang bisyon at strategiya para sa infrastruktura upang masiguro na mga pangunahing social structures kagaya ng mga silid-aralan at iba pang pasilidad pang-edukasyon ay bahagi ng isang maayos na master plan na itataguyod ng tuloy-tuloy tungo sa pag-unlad sa mga susunod na henerasyon. Mr. President, for every classroom that we build, we also build opportunities. We open doors for learning, growth, and hope. Providing access to education is one of the greatest equalizers of society. At kapag may maayos na mga silid-aralan, may pantay na pagkakataon ng bawat Pilipino na abutin ang kanilang pangarap at makapag-ambag sa pag-unlad ng ating bansa. Mr. President, sa pagpasa natin ng panukalang ito, sabay-sabay tayong nagtatanim ng pag-asa at isang mas maginhawang bukas para sa minamahal na Pilipinas. With the permission of the sponsor, this representation would like also to be co-author of the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, Senators Mark Villar and Jingo Estrada would like to insert to the records their co-sponsorship speech for Senate Bill number 1482.
So inserted into the records.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 1482.
You know, with the number of sponsors and co-authors of this measure, it might as well pass it today. But nevertheless, because we have to follow the rules, we will have to suspend consideration and approve it afterwards. Yes, Senator Makino is recognized. Before I act on the motion,
Yes, Mr. President, I'd just like to thank our colleagues sa napakarami pong sumusuporta. Maraming salamat po. Alam ko pong maraming sumusuporta, hindi ko po ine-expect na marami po mag-co-sponsor at co-author. Thank you so much to our dear colleagues, and I hope this can be one of the measures where we can work together for the Filipino youth and the Filipino people. Salamat po.
well, I have good news for you. Senate Bill 1482, establishing the Classroom Building Acceleration Program, of which you are the principal author of and sponsor, is included in the LEDAC. So even the palace is backing up your bill. So the LEDAC priority list, it's included there.
Geneva, Switzerland on October 19, Geneva, Switzerland on October 19 to 23. In attendance at the Assembly with me were Senator Erwin Tulfo as the head of the delegation and Senator Aimee Marcos, with the team upholding humanitarian norms and supporting humanitarian action in times of crises. I met with my counterpart delegates from Japan, Cambodia, and Myanmar and exchanged views on how we can further strengthen our government's friendship and cooperation. I also took this trip as an opportunity to meet and greet our kababayans working and living in Switzerland and France. Bilateral meetings in Japan. On the sidelines of the IPU Assembly, Senator Erwin and I met with Honorable Fuji Kazuhiro, who is a member of the House of Councilors of Japan. Bilang chairman ng Senate Committee on Migrant Workers, pinasalamatan po natin si Honorable Kazuhiro dahil sa magandang pagtrato ng Japanese employers sa 50,706 OFWs na nasa Japan, na malaki ang naitutulong sa ekonomiya ng Pilipinas sa pamagitan ng kanilang remittances. Isa sa mga napag-usapan po namin ang aging population ng Japan, at aking pong inirekomenda kay Honorable Kazuhiro ang posibilidad na magbukas na mas marami pang employment opportunities para sa Pilipino nurses and caregivers. Lalo na ang Pilipinas ay kilala bilang isang bansa na mapagkalinga at marunong manasakit sa mga nakakatanda. We also discussed Japan's public mass transit system, and Honorable Kazuhiro mentioned that Japan has manpower shortage in the transport sector. Iminungkahi ko na maaari silang kumuha ng Filipino transport workers upang makapagtrabaho sa Japan. We will recommend for DFA and DMW to conduct bilateral talks to their counterparts to address specific issues about these, at akin po itong tututukan ng mga online scam hubs. Switzerland. Habang ako po ay nasa San Erwin, we held a meet and greet with Filipinos at the Philippine Consulate General Office, all thanks to Ambassador Carlos Soreta. Bukod sa mga problema ang idinulog sa ating mga kababayan doon, ipinadala ko rin sa kanila ang kahalagaan o ipinaalala ko rin sa kanilang kahalagaan ng isinusulong kong Senate Bill number 90 o OFW Financial Education Act, na layo mabigyan ng sapat na kaalaman ng mga OFW sa pag-manage ng kanilang pera. Ito ay para rin masiguro na hindi sila malulubog sa utang at may maayos na buhay pagbalik sa Pilipinas pagkatapos mag-retire sa trabaho sa abroad. I can say, Mr. President, that Filipinos in Switzerland are in way better condition than Filipinos working in other countries. Kasi nga po, halimbawa sa Hong Kong, marami po sa mga kababayan natin ang nalulubog sa utang. In fact, tumataas po yung bilang ng suicide sa bansang Hong Kong sapagkat hindi po alam ng mga OFWs natin kung paano nila i-manage ang kanilang finances. Marami sa kanila ang utang ng utang or dili kaya ay ginagamit sila bilang magbabouch sa mga kakilala at ng pagdating ng oras ay yung kakilala nila na kanilang binouch sa utang ay hindi nagbabayad, doon na po pumapasok yung sila nadidepress hanggang sa sila gumagawa ng hindi tama against doon sa kanilang sarili. Paris, personal ko rin kinumusta ang ating mga kababayan sa France. Kasama ko si Ambassador Eduardo Jose de Vega at Consul General Noemi Diaz. At bilang Chairman Senate Committee on Migrant Workers, ibinahagi ang aking panukalang batas gaya ng pagtatag ng Migrant Workers Relations Commission, isang special court sa loob ng DMW upang mapabilis ang pagresolba ng mga kaso ng ating mga OFW nang hindi na kailangan dumaan sa mahabang proseso o magsumbong pa sa aking programa. Pagtatag ng OFW Action Center sa bawat probinsya at malalaking lungsod upang lahat ng serbisyo mula pre-deployment hanggang reintegration ay nasa isang lugar na lamang. Pagpapalawak ng OFW Dependent Scholarship Program mula sa dating 5,000 slots ay gagawin nating 10,000 slots upang mas maraming anak ng mga OFW, hindi lamang sa koleyo, kundi pati na rin mula elementarya hanggang high school ang makinabang. Sa Open Forum ay natalakay ang kakulangan ng trabaho sa Pilipinas na siyang pangunahing dahilan kung bakit maraming kababayan natin ang napipilitang mangibang bansa. I shared that this problem is precisely what I'm pushing for, an across-the-board minimum wage for workers in Metro Manila and the provinces. With this, workers across the country will have the access to good job opportunities without the need to migrate elsewhere. That's all, Mr. President. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we transfer from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for Special Orders Committee Report number 7 on Senate Bill number 1483. This is the bill on the extending the duration of Second Congressional Commission on Education, or EDCOM 2. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is approved. So transferred.
Mr. President, I move that we consider Senate Bill number 1483 under Committee Report number 7.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of Senate Bill 1483 is now in order. The Secretary is directed to read only the title of the bill without prejudice to inserting into the records the whole text thereof.
An act extending the duration of the Second Congressional Commission on Education, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 11899, otherwise known as the Second Congressional Commission on Education, EDCOM 2 Act.
Majority Leader.
To sponsor the measure, I move that we recognize Senator Lauren Legarda, the chairperson of the Committee on Higher Technical and Vocational Education. So moved, Mr. President.
Hearing no objection, Senator Lorraine Legarda is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Esteemed colleagues, I rise to sponsor Senate Bill number 1483 under Committee Report number 7, which seeks to extend the duration of the Second Congressional Commission on Education, or EDCOM 2, thereby amending Republic Act number 11899. EDCOM 2 was established in 2022 to undertake a comprehensive national assessment of our educational system and to recommend structural reforms that would strengthen its quality, equity, and responsiveness to national needs. There is no doubt that the Commission has carried out this mandate in a manner that honors the intent of Congress. Its principal reports, Miseducation, the Failed System of Philippine Education and Fixing the Foundations, a Matter of National Survival, offer the most rigorous, data-informed diagnosis of our education sector in recent memory. These studies describe persistent and systemic deficiencies that require sustained national attention, including critically low early childhood program participation, a classroom backlog of 165,000 units, chronic textbook shortages, widespread stunting and undernutrition among our youngest learners, and high attrition rates in higher education. Crucially, the significance of EDCOM 2 lies not only in its diagnosis, but also in how it has acted on those findings. The Commission brought together national agencies, local governments, schools, research institutions, and civil society partners to translate evidence into reform. Its work has informed legislation, guided appropriations, strengthened administrative coordination, and established pathways for institutional development. In the 19th Congress, the work of EDCOM2 contributed directly to the passage of 10 landmark laws that expanded access, promoted equity, improved quality across our education system. While its mandate under RA 11899 concludes in December this year, EDCOM2 has not entered a period of winding down. Instead, it continues to move with full momentum, compelled by the understanding that while much has been achieved, significant work remains to build the education system our people deserve. Currently, the Commission is developing several measures, including those identified as priority bills under the Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council, or LEDAC, for the 20th Congress. These include, first, amendments to the Masustansyang Pagkain para sa Batang Pilipino Act to expand and sustain the National Feeding Program. Second, amendments to the Government Assistance to Students and Teachers in Private Education Act to broaden voucher coverage to students from kindergarten to grade 6. Third, amendments to the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act to guarantee tertiary education subsidy eligibility to students who need it most. Fourth, amendments to the Teachers Professionalization Act to introduce practical components in licensure pathways and open multiple routes to teacher qualification. Fifth, amendments to the Local Government Code on Special Education. Fund, to align the SEF utilization with current education needs and to strengthen local education governance. And six, Classroom Building Acceleration Program Bill, just sponsored now and championed by EDCOM2 co-chair Senator Bam Aquino, to close the classroom gap and to ensure adequate learning spaces nationwide. Informed by the work of EDCOM2, I'm also honored to advance measures that address systemic gaps across basic, higher, technical, and vocational education, including the Last Mile Schools Bill, the modernization of the decades-old charters of CHED and TESDA to ensure that our institutions are aligned with the needs of the learners today. Beyond legislation, EDCOM2's research has translated directly into program funding. Its recommendations on early childhood development resulted in an allocation of 1 billion pesos in the 2025 General Appropriations Act for the establishment of child development centers in 328 low-income local government units and 80 million pesos in scholarship support for the professional development of child development workers. The Commission also identified long-standing misalignment in professional education and licensure policies across CHED, TESDA, and the Professional Regulation Commission. This finding led to the creation of a tripartite council last month to harmonize curricula, training regulations, and licensure standards under a coherent national framework. Further, the Commission conducted hearings on education delivery in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, which underscored the need to clarify the respective responsibilities of national agencies and the regional government in implementing essential education and nutrition programs. Policy recommendations to strengthen coordination are now being refined. EDCOM2 also served as a convener, bringing together DepEd, CHED, and TESDA in a historic first joint meeting to address system-wide reforms. As noted by TESDA Director General Jose Francisco Kiko Benitez, the Commission's evidence-based work encouraged agencies to move beyond their own little silos and work towards a more integrated education system. Undoubtedly, EDCOM 2 was the driving force behind the establishment of the Education and Workforce Development Group through Administrative Order Number 36, directly addressing the fragmentation identified in the Commission's Year 1 report and affirmed by the concurrent resolution passed by the Senate and adopted by the House of Representatives. This effective translation of research into reform is precisely what makes the role of EDCOM 2 indispensable. It has functioned both as a think tank and as a coordinating body, building trust and consensus among diverse stakeholders, including agencies, teachers, parents, and policymakers. To ground its recommendations, EDCOM 2 has commissioned 97 research studies, partnered with 91 organizations, conducted 44 workshops and consultations, 32 hearings, 9 site visits, and 3 benchmarking sessions or missions. This work was made possible through the dedication of its secretariat, led by its executive director, Dr. Carol Markey, and supported by its advisory council under the leadership of those who served as commissioners from both chambers of Congress, including this representation, together with Senators Sherwin Gatchalian, Joel Villanueva, Alan Peter Cayetano, Pia Cayetano, Chis Escudero, and Bam Aquino, as well as former Senators Sani Angara and Coco Pimentel, who served during the 19th Congress. While EDCOM 2 is on track to submit its final report and the National Education and Workforce Development Plan as it completes its 3-year mandate, the sustained implementation of its policy recommendations requires continued oversight. The task before us is to ensure that reforms are fully institutionalized. This need for continuity was affirmed by our key education agencies, DepEd, CHED, and TESDA, during the hearing of the Committee on Higher, Technical, and Vocational Education on October 8, where they expressed clear support for extending the duration of EDCOM 2. For these reasons, I respectfully submit for the consideration of this August Chamber Senate Bill number 1483, extending the duration of EDCOM 2 for an additional 2 years or until December 2027. This will provide the necessary time to complete the remaining legislative measures and to ensure the institutionalization of coherent and lasting reform across the system. We are at a moment when progress is within reach. The work has direction. The coordination is in place. The momentum is real. It is only right, Mr. President, that we see it through. Maraming salamat po.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure, Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan. I move that he be recognized.
Senator Francis Pangilinan is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, distinguished Majority Leader. To our distinguished colleagues, I rise today to co-sponsor Senate Bill 1483 as per the committee report of our esteemed colleague, Senator Loren Legarda. Sangayon ako sa panukala niyang palawigin at palawakin ang mandato ng ating Second Congressional Commission on Education. Napakataas ng nakataya at napakalaki ng pagkakataon. Hindi abstract na mga pulisiya ang gawain ng komisyong ito. Ito ang araw-araw na realidad ng mahigit 24 na milyong estudyante, magulang at guro. Ito ang kinabukasan at pag-asa ng mga pamilya sa buong Pilipinas. Tungkol ito sa halos 20% ng buong populasyon ng ating bansa. Buhay ng isa sa bawat 5 Pilipino ang huhubugin ng mga pasya sa edukasyon. Hayaan ninyong ibahagi ko ang kwento ni Ginang Castro mula sa Cavite, isang dating guro na may 3 anak. lahat ng kanyang bagets ay dumaan sa K-12 program. Bawat isa pumili ng iba't ibang senior high school strand. Pero nalaman niya kamakailan sa private school na dati niyang pinagtuturuan, pinutol na ang strand ng humanities, accountancy at STEM sa grades 11 at 12. At 2 tracks na lamang ang nanatili, academic at tech pro. Sabi niya na wala ang lahat ng pangako ng programa. Dapat sana tapos na at nagtatrabaho na ang mga anak ko, tulad nung ako sa edad nila. Ngunit sa halip na sayang ang panahong hindi na may babalik. Mga pagkabiko at pagluluksa sa kanyang kwento, tuition at baon sa dagdag na taon at yung ang maraming taon na hindi na mababawi. Para sa mga pamilyang tulad ng kay Ginang Castro, dapat manindigan ang komisyon. Samantala, maraming public school teacher ang iisa ang kwento. Bumibili sila ng pagkain mula sa sarili nilang bulsa para sa kanilang mga estudyante na pumapasok ng gutom. Gusto nilang pumasok ding may pag-asa ang mga bata. Kaya ang expanded free meals program na panukalang batas ng inyong lingkod at nahiring na ni Senator Bam Aquino ay ating isinusulong. Kailangan tulungan tayo ng EDCOM 2 na ibahin ang pag-asa na iyon at gawing regular at tunay na pagpapakain at pagkatuto. Hindi nagsisinungaling ang datos na idokumento ng komisyon ang malalim na mga kakulangan sa pagkatuto. Mga batang magtatapos sa grade 3 na hindi marunong magbasa ayon sa antas ng baitang. Walang mga basic na kasanayan, mga gurong napakaraming gawain at mga gumuguhong paaralan. Ganun pa man sa likod ng mga datos na ito, may mga pangarap na ipinagpaliban. Mga bata, malabo nang mabawi ang nawalang oras. Mga guro na sa bingit ng pagkahapo. Pero ang tungkulin na hindi lamang ayusin ang nasira, dapat din nating likhain at buuhin ang isang sistema na magbibigay ng ugat at ng pakpak. Ugat para sa katatagan, pakpak para sa pag-unlad. Roots and wings. Hayaang ituro ng bagong kurikulum ang mga bakit at paano. Hayaang matuto ang mga mag-aaral ng bayanihan, ang pamana ng ating lahi na nagsasama-sama sa krisis at pag-asa, sa hirap, sa ginhawa. Hayaang pag-aralan ng mga maritime school, hindi lamang ang foreign navigation, kundi ang mga gawain sa dagat ng ating mga ninuno na subok na ng panahon. Sa agriculture schools, bakit imported na binhi at chemical lang ang itinuturo? Pagsamahin natin ang global advances at ang likas na kaalaman ng mga magsasakang Pilipino. Nakaraniwan ay angkop sa ating lupa, sa ating klima at sa mga hamon ng climate change. Malinaw ang ulat ng EDCOM 2. Tayo ay nasa krisis, ngunit nasa isang sangangdaan din tayo. Ipinakita sa ating ng komisyon kung saan nabigo ang polisiya. Ngunit itinuturo din ito ang daang pagsulong, pagtawag para sa mga foundational investments sa maagang literacy at nutrition. Nutrition nga raw ay foundational sa learning para sa updated at relevant din na curriculum, para sa mga better trained at better supported na mga guro, para sa isang whole of government action. Bigyan natin ang komisyon na ito ng oras, dagdag na kasangkapan at mas malawak na mandato para makumpleto ang mga gawaing nabanggit. Bigyan natin ng hustisya ang mga Castro at ang hindi mabilang na pamilya, guro at estudyanteng umaasa sa atin. Bilang pangwakas, alam nating lahat, pag namuhunan tayo sa edukasyon, namuhunan din tayo sa kinabukasan ng bawat Pilipino, namumuhunan din tayo sa kinabukasan ng Republika ng Pilipinas. For these reasons, Mr. President, I wholeheartedly co-sponsor Senate Bill 1483 and urge its immediate approval. Maraming salamat.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure, Senator Joel Villanueva. I move that he be recognized.
Senator Joel Villanueva is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Mr. President, I rise to co-sponsor the measure extending the duration of the Second Congressional Commission on Education, or EDCOM-2. We'd like to put on record our sincerest thanks and gratitude to the sponsor, Senator Loren Legarda, for including Senate Bill number 103, filed by this representation, together with Senators Pia and Alan Cayetano and Escudero. Mr. President, as one of the commissioners of EDCOM-2, I have seen firsthand how the Commission has worked tirelessly to understand and fix what is broken in our education system. In just 2 years, EDCOM-2 has completed numerous research studies, consultations, and school visits nationwide. These conversations with teachers, learners, parents, and local leaders have helped us visualize and clearly define and describe the state of our education system, as well as the much-needed interventions. The Commission's Year 2 report, aptly titled Fixing the Foundations, a Matter of National Survival, tells us that the learning crisis is not abstract. 1 in 4 Filipino children under 5 is stunted, and many of our grade 4 learners still struggle to read with understanding or do basic math. These are not just education statistics. They are a warning light for our nation's future. Despite well-intentioned reforms and higher budgets, our students continue to lag in international assessments, such as PISA 2022, where we rank among the lowest in reading, math, and science. The issue is not effort. Mr. President, it is coherence, coordination, and follow-through. Mr. President, EDCOM-2's findings are now crystallizing into actionable reforms. Reforms on teacher quality, early childhood education, curriculum relevance, and stronger alignment between learning and work. To stop now, Mr. President, would mean losing our hard-won momentum and the depth of consensus we have built across sectors. Mr. President, extending EDCOM's 2 mandate is not about prolonging a study. It is about ensuring that these reforms reach the finish line, backed by data, consultation, and urgency. In closing, may I say, Mr. President, once again, that education remains our nation's greatest equalizer. Let us give this commission the time it needs to finish the job so that every Filipino learner from preschool to professional life can truly thrive. Maraming salamat po, and may God bless us all.
Thank you. Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure, Senator Bamakino. I move that he be recognized.
Senator Bamakino is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, nais po nating magpahiwatig ng ating kagustuhan, mag-co-sponsor at mag-co-author sa panukalang ito. Alam ho natin na napakahalaga ng gawain ng EDCOM. Nandito po sila. We all know that their work is really important, at dahil po sa kanilang trabaho, marami pong nailabas ng mga datos na kinakailangan ng mga policymakers para makagawa ng mga magaganda, mabubuti at responsive na batas para po sa ating kabataan. So we wholeheartedly support Senator Legarda, my counterpart in the Committee on Higher Education, and we hope that through this effort, the EDCOM work can continue and that they will be present to see these reforms come to pass. So maraming salamat, Mr. President, and we will move to insert a lengthier co-sponsorship speech in the records. Maraming salamat po.
All right. Majority Leader.
Next to co-sponsor the measure, Senator Risa Ontiveros. I move that she be recognized.
Senator Risa Ontiveros is recognized.
Salamat po, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, magandang hapon po. Today, I rise to co-sponsor the measure extending the term and expanding the mandate of the Second Congressional Commission on Education, or EDCOM-2. As one of the authors of this proposed measure, I wish to thank our chair, Senator Loren Legarda, for her leadership and steadfast commitment to ensuring the continuity and eventual institutionalization of the reforms initiated by EDCOM-2. EDCOM-2 is more than just a review of our education system. It is our collective national effort to ensure that Philippine education truly prepares our learners for the future. The expanded mandate of EDCOM 2 seeks to align our curricula, teaching, and assessments with global standards, improve infrastructure, resources, and teacher development, and update our national education agenda to fully integrate digital transformation, artificial intelligence with protocols and safeguards, and green innovations for a future-ready workforce. This measure is not only about global competitiveness. It is, first and foremost, about our people. Ang tunay na layunin ng reforma sa edukasyon ay ang pagpapaunlad ng ating human capital, isang haligi ng pambansang kaunlaran. When we strengthen education, we strengthen every Filipino's capacity to dream, to innovate, and to contribute to our country's progress. While the substitute bill does not adopt my earlier proposal to transition EDCOM 2 from policy formulation to executive action through the establishment of an education cabinet cluster, I fully acknowledge and welcome the creation of the Education and Workforce Development Group. Its mandate to align education and training with national goals, craft a 10-year development plan, streamline interagency efforts, and monitor reforms is a crucial step towards a coherent, responsive, and future-ready education and workforce system. Let us ensure that these reforms are not only written into law, but also felt in every classroom and community. Education remains our most powerful equalizer, ang pinakamabisang sandata laban sa kahirapan at susi sa mas makatao at maunlad na kinabukasan. Marami pong salamat, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Yes, next to co-sponsor the measure, Senator Pia Cayetano. I move that she be recognized.
Senator Pio Cayetano is recognized.
Mr. President, I rise today to co-sponsor Senate Bill number 1483 under Committee Report number 7. This bill seeks to extend the duration of the Second Congressional Commission on Education, or EDCOM 2, for 2 more years. As a former commissioner of EDCOM 2, I have had the privilege of working closely with our education partners in assessing and understanding the true state of Philippine education. Through rigorous research and nationwide consultation, we have seen both the magnitude of our challenges and the opportunities to pursue meaningful and lasting reform. In just 3 years, EDCOM 2 has produced groundbreaking reports, its Year 1 assessment exposing deep systemic fractures, and its Year 2 report fixing the foundations, released just this year, sounding an urgent alarm on the crisis in our early learning stages. These are not mere documents. These are battle cries for a Philippines where no child is left behind, and yet the work is far from done. The complexities we've uncovered demand more time, more deliberate action to turn findings into laws, recommendations into realities. That is why we must extend EDCOM 2 to ensure its momentum carries us through implementation, monitoring, and ultimately measurable progress. EDCOM 2's latest insights, drawn from the 2023 National Nutrition Survey and corroborated by UNICEF data, reveal that 1 out of every 4 Filipino child is stunted. That's 23.6% of our youngest citizens suffering irreversible damage from chronic malnutrition before they even step into a classroom. These figures are not just statistics, they are a call to action. EDCOM 2 is also made it clear education reform begins with investing in people. We cannot expect our schools to deliver quality education if they lack the basic manpower to function effectively. EDCOM 2 found that about half of our public schools do not even have a full-fledged principal. Many schools are also lacking administrative officers, planning and development officers, and guidance counselors, the very positions that keep a school system running smoothly and support the well-being of both learners and teachers. We must see through our investment in this manpower in school heads, admin officers, PDO guidance counselors, and the allied professionals who make inclusive education possible: speech pathologists, occupational physical therapists, and special education teachers. EDCOM2's report highlights a persistent job skill mismatch in the Philippines, particularly among graduates of technical vocational programs, where nearly 2/3 end up in jobs unrelated to their training. While TVET education increases labor force participation, it does not consistently lead to quality or aligned employment. EDCOM2 attributes this gap to outdated training regulations, limited industry participation in curriculum design, and weak school-to-work transition systems. These findings underscore the urgent need to align education and training with actual labor market demands, strengthen enterprise-based learning, and ensure that reforms, like those envisioned under EDCOM2's extended mandate, translate into meaningful employment opportunities for Filipino learners. I also wish to note that the committee report explicitly takes into consideration our bill, Senate Bill number 103, which complements this extension by providing additional mechanisms for education reform and implementation oversight. EDCOM2 has produced critical studies on learning recovery, teacher quality, early childhood education, higher education governance, and future skills development, studies that have already informed ongoing reforms in curriculum design, teacher training, and interagency coordination. These outputs have strengthened our understanding of what must be done to rebuild our education system after the learning losses caused by the pandemic and years of underinvestment. As the former chair of the Senate Finance Subcommittee that handled the budget of higher and basic education, I have always maintained that education is our country's most powerful and enduring investment. But for that investment to create real and lasting impact, it must be anchored on sound policy, guided by reliable data, and driven by evidence, exactly the kind of foundation that EDCOM2 provides. As chairperson of the Senate Committee on Sustainable Development Goals, Innovations and Futures Thinking, I view this extension as a reaffirmation of our commitment to SDG 4, quality education. Education is the foundation of all other goals, from gender equality to decent work, innovation, and inclusive growth. Education reform is not a sprint, it is a marathon. By extending EDCOM2, we ensure that the work we have begun, built on evidence, collaboration, and foresight, continues until it leads to genuine transformation for every Filipino learner. Let us give EDCOM2 the time it needs to complete its mission and to carry forward the vision of a Philippine education system that is inclusive, future-ready, and world-class. Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, last two co-sponsor measures, Senator Robin Hood Padilla, move that he be recognized.
Senator Robin Padilla is recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo, at sa ating pinunong mayoriya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ginoong Pangulo, mga kasama ko mambabatas, magandang araw po uli sa inyong lahat. Tayo pong lahat ay produkto ng 1986 Revolution. Tayo po ay nasa ilalim ng 1987 Constitution. Ang sabi po ng mga eksperto, ang isa daw pong matagumpay na revolusyon ay ito po ang nasasaad. The new government typically implements significant educational reforms designed to align the system and with the new political and social ideology. The primary goals of education in this context often shift to fostering a new national identity, promoting civic responsibility, and developing a skilled workforce to support the new economy. Malungkot ko pong sasabihin, medyo na-disgrasya po tayo dyan, mga mahal kong kababayan, dahil hindi po natin na-achieve ito. Kaya ako po ay tumatayo ngayon bilang co-sponsor ng panukalang paluwigin ang Second Congressional Commission on Education o EDCOM2. Sa ating mahal na bayan, malinaw pong nakikita natin na ang krisis sa edukasyon ay hindi lamang numero, hindi lamang datos, kundi muka at buhay ng bawat batang Pilipino na patuloy na umaasang may lugar sila sa mas magandang kinabukasan. Kaya ako po ay nakikiisa sa ating mga pangunahing may akda upang tunay pong sabihin natin na nagtagumpay ang revolusyon noong 1986 bilang miyembro ng Committee on Basic Education at Committee on Finance. Nakita ko po mismo ang sakripisyo ng ating mga guro at ang hirap ng ating mga magulang. At bilang isang ama, ramdam ko sa puso ko na hindi makatarungan ng ating kabataan ay lumaki sa sistemang hindi natutugunan ang kanilang mga pangarap. Isa pong napakasakit tingnan na ang mga anak ko'y nag-aaral sa mga pribadong eskwelahan. Ngunit bilang isang senador, ang mga batang Pilipino ay naghihirap sa mga silid-aralang siksikan sa pampubliko mga paaralan. Gurong pagod na pagod pero patuloy na naglilingkod. Kabataang nagtatangkang mangarap kahit paminsan ay tila kulang ang kanilang preparasyon para sa mga magiging hamon ng buhay. Ito pong pagsulong nito ay isang hamon po sa ating lahat na mambabatas dito sa taas na kapulungan at sa malaking kapulungan sapagkat nakakahiya po ng ating mga anak ay nag-aaral sa mga pribadong paaralan at ang iba ay nasa international schools pa. Ang papapalawig sa EDCOM 2 ay pagkilala na ang sugat ng ating sistema ng edukasyon ay malalim at kailangan ng mas masusing pag-aaral, mas mahabang konsultasyon at mas matibay na pagkilos. Kaya ako po'y nagpapasalamat sa ating mga kasama sa komite, lalo na po sa aming hinahangangang magandang Senadora Loren Legarda at kay hinahangaang Senador Bam Aquino dahil pinakita ninyo na ang edukasyon ay laban ng buong Senado at bilang kasama po ninyo, buong puso po akong sumusuporta sa panukalang ito. Sana po atin pong isulong kung ano daw po ang nasa successful revolution, curriculum overhaul, expansion of access, language of instruction, teacher training recruitment, decentralization, control, base sa cultural at language, vocational and technical skills, at new infrastructure. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, Senator Christopher Lawrence Bongo would like to be made co-sponsor and request that his co-sponsors his speech on Senate Bill number 1480 be inserted to the records.
We will so insert into the records.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 1483.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of 1483 is suspended.
Mr. President, the gentleman from Palawan, Senator Erwin Tulfo, would like to deliver a privilege speech. I move that he be recognized.
The gentleman from Mimaropa is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen of this august chamber. Ako po ay tumitindig ngayon upang manawagan para sa ganap na proteksyon ng buong kabundukan ng Sierra Madre. Hindi lamang po sa Isabela, sa Hilaga, kundi hanggang sa lalawigan ng Quezon sa Timog. Noong Sabado at Linggo lamang, nang tumama po ang Super Typhoon Uwan sa Luzon, muli nating nasaksihan ang katatagan ng Sierra Madre. Siya lang naman po ang humarang sa unos, pumigil sa hagupit ng hangin, at nagligtas ng milyong-milyong buhay sa Luzon. Tahimik po niya ang ginampanan, Mr. President, muli ang tungkulin bilang ating tagapagligtas. Para pong isang ina na ikinubli ang kanyang mga anak sa dapat sanay nakamamatay na hagupit ni Uwan. Yet, Mr. President, despite its immense importance, the Sierra Madre remains under siege. Mining operations continue to carve scars upon slopes. Illegal logging and massive quarrying erode its soil. Infrastructure and resort developments threaten to fragment its forests. Gayong may mga batas naman gaya ng Republic Act No. 9125 o ang Northern Sierra Madre Natural Park Act of 2001 na naglalayong pangalagaan ito, nananatiling kulang at mahina ang pagpapatupad ng mga probisyong dapat sana'y nagpoprotekta sa natitirang likas na yaman ng ating bansa. Kaya naman, Ginoong Pangulo, nanawagan ako na agad suriin at pagtibayin ang pagpapatupad ng proteksyon sa Sierra Madre. Nararapat ang mas maigting na pagbabawal sa anumang mapaminsalang pagmimina for itself. It cannot march to this hall. It cannot plead for mercy against bulldozers and chainsaws. It relies on us, the people's representatives, to give it voice and legal protection. Ginoong Pangulo, mga kasama, ang Sierra Madre po ay buhay. Siya ang ating sandigan. Ngayon na ang panahon para ipakita na kaya rin nating ipagtanggol ang nagtatanggol.
Speech of the Honorable Senator Erwin Tulfo, I would like to raise concerns on the protection of our environment, especially our protected areas. 3 years ago, I expressed my opposition over the Kaliwa Dam project because of the irreversible harm it will cause to the ecosystem of Sierra Madre and because of the affected indigenous communities. Several environmentalist groups further raised their concern on the threat to the lives of 100,000 residents once it's built, as it will be constructed within a zone of 2 active tectonic belts, the Philippine Fault Zone and Valley Fault System. At dahil nasita ang DNR, sinuspindi ang proyekto. Kung hindi pa nasita, tuloy-tuloy ang proyekto. Inamin ng DNR na hindi pa compliant ang proyekto sa zoning requirements. At the moment, may go signal na ulit sa Kaliwa Dam Project. Dahil ba nabaling na atensyon ng mga tao? Are the concerns of the indigenous people addressed? While the MWSS claimed that only half of the village will be affected, indigenous groups and villagers said the waters would submerge up to 90% of the village, as only houses situated 70 meters and above will be spared. Ito po ang matagal ko nang sinasabi at paulit-ulit. Ang ating DENR ay parati na lang pumapasok pag may kaguluhan na, pag may nadisgrasya na, pag may milyon nang nasira at marami nang namatay. Reactive at hindi po proactive ang ating DENR. Dapat po ang DENR anunguna sa pagpigil ng pag-aabuso sa ating kalikasan. Pero hindi po ganitong nangyari. Kasi po may nababayaran sa baba para mabigyan ng ECC. Pag walang nagreklamo, everybody happy. Pag may nagprotesta naman, hindi rin agad pinapansin hanggat hindi nag-viral o ma-pick up ng media o sa social media. Anong klaseng sistema meron po tayo? The problem with our environment, Mr. President, is that damages are often irreversible. Kaya dapat prevention ang priority natin, hindi rehabilitation. Dahil years and even decades ang kailangan to bring back any damage to our environment. And the cost is nowhere near any economic advantage that we can gain from some of the projects. And that is why we have the E-NIPAS Act, excuse me, or the expanded National Integrated Protected Areas System Act. These are areas that we recognize as sacred and need absolute protection. But from our experience as Kaliwa Dam, sa resort, sa Chocolate Hills at sa Mount Apo, at sa wind farm energy projects at sa Masungi, ang mga regulasyon ay optional. Depende kung magkaroon ng kadahilanan. Sa magkanong kadahilanan? In some ways. Ang mga environment compliance certificates ay nabibili gaya ng mga birth certificates at diplomas dyan sa recto. I have discussed this matter with my fellow senators who are environment advocates, and they agreed with me that we must review the E-NIPAS Act. There's a need to instill better regulatory system. Community participation in the regulation must be strengthened. But just like infra project, it is the communities that point out irregularities. It is the community that has genuine concern for the environment. Furthermore, we should include in the prohibited and penalized acts the participation of government officials in the prohibited acts, because the violation of our environmental laws are never committed without the consent or cooperation of a public official. Given po yan palagi. Sa katotohanan, naipakita ko na po kung paano paglaruan ang mga miyembro ng DNR, PAMBI, NCIP at iba pang ahensya para makakuha ng kakayanang babuyin ang ating protected areas. While the right price and the right friends, anything is possible. Meaning, walang imposible if the price is right. Oras na para bisitahin natin muli ang INIPAS at iba pang batas para wakasan ang ganitong klaseng bulok na sistema. With this, I commend and give my full support to the privileged speech of the good Senator Erwin Tulfo. Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, likewise, I would like to support the privileged speech of Senator Tulfo. I'm also and I have seen how these developers, Mr. President, I have encroached into the Upper Marikina River Basin Protected Watershed. Ito po dapat ang parte ng Sierra Madre na nagpo-protection sa atin po sa Metro Manila. And dati po kami nagmo-motocross dyan. We're going, especially during the COVID time. Kahit saan po nakakapunta kami sa Sierra Madre. But lately, in the last few days, hindi na po kami pinapayagan. May mga guardian tumipigil at may mga development na po. Rest houses, subdivisions, and that is very alarming, Mr. President, because Sierra Madre, indeed, is our protector. And I have raised this issue several times during the budget hearings of DNR. And I hope that we will, given these two big storms, that we have seen how Sierra Madre protected Metro Manila and other provinces, I just hope that we will continue to pay attention and be focused on this, Mr. President. I'm a witness on what Senator Raffy Tulfo and Senator Erwin Tulfo have brought up, that there are indeed developments that are ongoing in what is supposedly a protected watershed. That is the Sierra Madre. Yes, Senator, before we proceed, Mr. President, Senator Risa Ontiveros is seeking the floor. I move that she be recognized.
Senator Risa Ontiveros, recognized.
Salamat po, Mr. President. Gusto ko lang pong i-manifest yung pagsuporta ko sa diwa ng privilege speech ni Senator Erwin Tulfo. Na-appreciate ko po talaga napapanahon dahil sa muli nga pong pagdanas natin, hindi lang po dun sa sinasabing storm breaking capacities ng Sierra Madre, kung hindi yung hindi matatawarang halaga ng pag-reforest sa kanya dahil sa again, hindi matatawarang economic, social, and environmental services na ibinibigay ng pinakamahalagang mountain range sa buong Luzon dito sa ating mga komunidad. At naglulook forward po ako na makipagtrabaho sa mabuting Ginoo mula sa Palawan sa mga kaugnay na panukalang batas sa mga susunod na panahon. At sa panahon din ngayon na papasok po tayo sa plenary interpellations at proposal of amendments sa ating budget para sa taong 2026. Nais ko lang ipaalam sa good gentleman from Palawan na kasalukuyan po kaming nagda-draft, inaayos yung wording at possible sources of funding para sa isang general provision kaugnay ng Sierra Madre Resilience. So muli po, Mr. President, salamat po kay Senator Erwin Tulfo. Salamat po, Mr. President.
Mr. President, our Minority Leader, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, is seeking the floor.
The Minority Leader, Senator Alan Cayetano, is recognized.
Good afternoon, Mr. Senate President, our dear colleagues, and unang-una siguro, just as a manifestation and a thanksgiving sa ating Panginoon na yung nakita nating laki ng bagyo. Marami pa rin na pinsala, grabe pa rin ang tama sa ilan mga lugar. But if all of us who saw the pictures and comparing it with Yolanda, comparing it with the past storms, and then of course, yung yung bagyo din na pinagdadaanan natin sa corruption, I just wanted to express, thanksgiving sa Panginoon at sa lahat ng Pilipino na nagkaisa tayo during this time. Having said that, it does tell me one thing. If you see our discussions today, EDCOM, at lahat ng problema na lumabas sa EDCOM, and I'd like to thank Senator Win and Senator now Secretary Angara, lahat ng nasa EDCOM. Kayo po ni former Senator Edgardo Angara sa EDCOM 1. Pinag-usapan din natin yung classroom kanina, ngayon naman Sierra Madre. The simple manifestation that I want to do, Mr. President, is that when we start the budget on Thursday, we should start looking at this as an opportunity to do something very decisive and to do it differently. So usually every year we try to do it better. Each Congress, 17, 18, 19, 5, 6, 7, we try to improve, innovate. But itong disruption, itong gulo, itong nagdidebate po tayo, no? Senator Marcoleta, Senator Lacson have different points of view on many things, but I think in the end we all want one thing, di ba? Pag nagdadasal po tayo, sabi, your kingdom come here on earth as it is in heaven. At yung kingdom ng Panginoon ay maayos. So the manifestation that I want to make is that I look forward to working with all of you sa budget. But sana ma-convince din natin yung executive department at saka yung House of Representatives, lahat ng ating kababayan, na we have to do things differently. If we have to ban all these kinds of development from Sierra Madre, let's just do it. Diba? If we have to decide, will we take out, suspend muna 2 years from K to 12 habang binibuild yung classroom, or do we move 100 billion to classrooms? Hindi lang classroom yung problema, new schools, yung lupa. EDCOM, problem after problem, nire-report every month, but mabagal tayo magsolusyon. We took out 200 billion from DPWH, almost 300 billion. Ngayon, 50% daw, overpriced. So all of this doesn't have to lead to frustration. All of this can lead to opportunity na, sige, so I put it this way, kanina may nakasalubong akong hindi nilang itutuloy.
Sa mga nagdaang linggo at buwan, sunod-sunod pong sinubok ang ating bayan. Hindi pa man naghirapang itaguyod ng ilang taon ay gumuho. Mga nasa 300 mahigit 5 na madaling masira at bumigay, ang katagang flood control ghost projects pala ay hindi lamang ghost sa kadahilan ng hindi sila nakikita at nararamdaman, kundi dahil mumultuhin